Have you ever wondered what it actually means to, walk the walk, not just talk the talk when it comes to philosophy? Like, how do you put these big ideas into action in your daily life?
It's a question that's been pondered for ages, so
Hmm.
thankfully. And today, we're going to tackle it head on, taking a trip back to classical China, like way back to the 6th to the 3rd century BCE, to see how some of the most influential thinkers in history grappled with this very idea of like embodying philosophy.
So we're talking Confucius, Laozi, those kinds of figures.
Exactly. We're going to dive deep into their world, exploring the different schools of thought that flourished during this incredibly vibrant period, kind of like a golden age for Chinese philosophy.
Sounds intense, I'm in. But where do we even begin to unpack all of that?
Well, one thing that ties all these different schools together is their focus on this concept of the heart-mind, or kianic. You see, kianics isn't just about your brain power. It's not just your intellect. It encompasses your emotions, your desires, your intentions, like the whole shebang, the driving force behind everything you do.
Okay, so it's like this integrated center of our being, not just the thinking part, but all the feels and drives, too.
Right on. And what's so fascinating is how each school interpreted this heart-mind and how that shaped their entire approach to, well, everything. Ethics, knowledge, how to live a good life. It all flowed from their understanding of the heart-mind.
So our mission today is to like decode this heart mind thing and see how it played out in the lives and philosophies of these classical Chinese thinkers, right?
Absolutely. And to make sure we're on solid ground, we're going to be drawing heavily from the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy's entry on mind, heart-mind, in Chinese philosophy. Got to keep it scholarly.
Love it when we get nerdy, but let's make this accessible too. Because I think this idea of the heart mind is super relevant even today for anyone trying to like live a more intentional and meaningful life.
Totally agree. It's all about connecting those big ideas to our everyday actions and choices. And trust me, there's no shortage of wisdom to be found in these ancient texts.
All right, let's jump in then. One of the things that always fascinates me about classical Chinese thought is this idea of like the interconnectedness of everything. It's so different from how we often see things in the West with like this sharp divide between mind and body.
Right. It's a really different perspective. I mean, the dominant scholarly view really emphasizes this holistic worldview. You have scholars like Roger T. Ames who coined this fantastic term, body-heart minding, to capture this idea of the integrated self.
So it's not a mind separate from a body, it's all interwoven somehow.
Yeah, it's this idea that our physical selves, our thoughts, and our emotions are all part of this one unified experience.
Hmm.
And then there's Francois Julien, who highlights the concept of qi, this vital energy or breath energy that's like the fundamental stuff that links everything in the universe.
Hold on, ki, like in Kugong and martial arts.
Exactly. Think of it as this underlying current, this flow of energy that powers both your physical body and your mind. It's what connects the seemingly separate realms of matter and consciousness, breathing life into everything.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this could challenge our usual Western way of thinking about the self. It's not a ghost in the machine anymore. It's like we're all part of this larger interconnected web of energy.
That's the beauty of it. And it's not just some ancient mystical idea either. Some scholars even see parallels with modern physics, with those theories about the interconnectedness of the universe at a quantum level.
Whoa, so we're talking like ancient wisdom meets modern science. I'm here for it.
Absolutely. And this idea of qi playing a role in both our physical and mental well-being is like super relevant today with the growing popularity of practices like qigong, acupuncture, and traditional Chinese medicine.
Makes you think about those practices in a whole new light, right? But let's bring it back to these philosophers we're exploring. How did they actually incorporate this idea of ki and this interconnectedness into their philosophies and their actions?
Great question. I mean, take Mencius, for instance. He believed that your will, stemming from your heart-mind, could actually direct the flow of qi in your body. And by cultivating your heart-mind with moral uprightness, you could cultivate a sense of harmony, not just within yourself, but with the entire cosmos.
So it's like your inner ethical compass aligns you with the universe itself. That's pretty powerful.
It is, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right? There are some, shall we say, wrinkles in this holistic view.
Okay, spill the tea. What are we missing?
Well, alongside this emphasis on interconnectedness, you also find these beliefs about Hun and Paul's souls and spirits that might leave the body after death. And even in texts like the Zhuangzi, there are hints that the heart-mind could exist independently from the body.
Wait, so does that mean they actually believed in like a separate soul after all? That kind of sounds like a crack in the whole holistic thing.
Yeah, it's a good point, and it's a topic of debate among scholars. Edward Slingerland, for example, talks about weak holism. He suggests that these postmortem spirits might be made of, like a rarefied form of physical stuff, still continuous with the material world, not totally separate.
Okay, so maybe not a full-blown soul in the Western sense, but still something that can exist apart from the body. Interesting.
And Lisa Rapolz, another scholar, points out that the line between this weak holism and what you might call weak dualism can get really blurry. It's not always a clear-cut distinction.
So it's more nuanced than just saying they were totally holistic or totally dualistic. They were grappling with these complex ideas about the nature of the self, and it wasn't always black and white.
Exactly. And that's one of the things I love about studying these texts. They challenge our assumptions and make us think in new ways.
Yeah.
But I think the key takeaway for the learner here is that this Chinese perspective offers a genuine alternative to both the idea of a totally separate soul and a purely materialistic view of the body, where we're just like biological machines.
It's like they're saying, hey, there's a middle ground here, a more integrated way of understanding the self.
Right. And this interconnectedness isn't just about like the metaphysical nature of reality. It also plays out in how they understood the relationship between the heart, mind, and the body.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about that.
Well, they had this idea of functional holism, where the heart, mind, and body interact through these correlative relationships, kind of like the concept of yin and yang, where opposing forces are actually interconnected and interdependent.
So like how sleep and wakefulness influence each other, but one doesn't directly cause the other.
Exactly. It's not a simple cause and effect relationship. They're more like two sides of the same coin, constantly influencing and shaping each other.
This is giving me a whole new appreciation for how complex and interconnected our inner and outer worlds really are. But let's not lose sight of the big picture here. These weren't just theoretical ideas, right? They were trying to figure out how to actually live in the world, how to be a good person, how to create a harmonious society.
You got it. And this understanding of the person, this interplay of heart, mind, and body, and our place in the cosmos, was like the very foundation for their ethical discussions and their ideas about how one should act.
Okay, so we've laid the groundwork with this integrated view of the person. Now let's see how that plays out in different schools of thought. Let's start with the big guy himself, Confucius. What did it mean to act as a philosopher in the Confucian tradition?
For Confucius, the ultimate goal was to become a junzi, an exemplary person, or even a shengren, a sage. And he actually gives us a glimpse into his own journey of self-cultivation in the Analects. He describes how at 15, he set his heart-mind on learning. And through years of dedicated practice, he eventually reached a point at 70 where he could follow his heart's desires without overstepping moral boundaries.
Wow, so it's a lifelong process of like aligning your desires with what's right, not just knowing the rules, but actually embodying them.
Precisely. And he really emphasized this idea of learning and practice. It wasn't just about acquiring knowledge, it was about cultivating moral character, which would then manifest in your actions, your interactions, even your posture and demeanor.
So like practicing those rituals wasn't just about going through the motions.
Not at all. It was a way to train your emotional and bodily responses to really embody virtue.
I'm starting to see how this all ties back to that holistic view of the person, where your inner state and your outward actions are inseparable.
Exactly. It's about integrating those external practices into your very being, letting them shape who you are at your core. And the heart-mind played a crucial role in this process. It wasn't just about passively receiving information. It was about actively shaping your inner world through deliberate effort and practice.
And all of this was ultimately aimed at cultivating Ren, that all-encompassing moral excellence, right?
Right. Ren was like the North Star of Confucianism, the ultimate expression of a truly virtuous person. It's often translated as human-heartedness or benevolence, but it really goes beyond any single definition. It's about embodying the highest ideals of humanity in all aspects of your life.
And how did Confucius see that playing out in like day-to-day interactions?
Well, a key aspect of Ren was this idea of shu, which is often translated as sympathetic understanding or reciprocity. Think of it as a deep empathy and consideration for others, putting yourself in their shoes.
It kind of reminds me of the golden rule, but it seems like there's more to it than that.
Yeah, you're right. It's not just about avoiding doing harm to others. It also has this positive dimension. It's about actively helping others achieve their goals and aspirations, just as you would want them to help you.
Oh, so it's like do unto others, but with an extra dose of like proactive support and encouragement.
Exactly. And this idea of shu is all about using your own experiences and emotions as a guide to understanding and connecting with others. It's a very active and engaged way of being in the world.
I'm seeing how, for Confucius, Acting as a philosopher wasn't just about contemplating these big ideas, but about actually living them out in your relationships and in how you treat other people.
Exactly. It's about striving for moral perfection and contributing to a harmonious society through your actions and interactions. And there's this great anecdote in the Analects that illustrates this beautifully.
Oh, I love a good story. Tell me more.
Well, one day, Confucius asked his students about their aspirations, what they wanted to achieve in life. And their answers were all about helping people, bringing peace and prosperity to their communities. It shows how this idea of Shu and Ren were central to their understanding of what it meant to live a good and meaningful life. And Confucius himself, his ultimate goal was to create a harmonious society where everyone could flourish, a vision that really resonated with his students.
It's so inspiring to see how they connected their personal goals to a larger purpose, to making the world a better place. And it all goes back to that idea of the heart mind as this driving force for good.
Absolutely. It's about aligning your individual desires with a larger moral vision, about letting your heart mind lead you towards a more just and compassionate world. And that's a core part of what it meant to act as a philosopher for Confucius.
I love how we can draw inspiration from these ancient teachings even today. It's like they're speaking across time, reminding us of the importance of cultivating virtue and compassion in our own lives. Okay, so we've explored the Confucian approach. Now let's shift gears to a different school of thought, the Mohists. They seem to have a totally different take on things, right?
Right. They were like the utilitarians of ancient China, focusing on practical benefits and arguing for social reforms based on what would bring the greatest good to the greatest number of people. And this emphasis on practicality really influenced how they thought about everything, including the heart and mind.
So less about tradition and ritual, more about results and maximizing happiness.
Exactly. And they weren't afraid to challenge the status quo either. I mean, they advocated for reforming social practices based on what they believed to be the will of Tan. Tian is often translated as heaven, but it's more like this impersonal cosmic force that governs the universe.
Okay, so they were guided by a higher power, but not in a religious way. It was more about aligning with this natural order of things.
Right. And they were all about reason and argumentation. They believed in using logic and evidence to persuade people and establish universal moral standards. So for them, acting as a philosopher wasn't just about personal cultivation. It was about actively working to create a better world based on these rational principles.
That's interesting. It's like they were bringing philosophy down to earth, making it about solving real world problems. And I'm guessing their idea of knowledge wasn't just about abstract theories either.
Absolutely. For them, knowledge, or Z, was all about being able to clearly distinguish right from wrong.
Mm.
It was practical knowledge, the kind that allows you to make good decisions and act effectively in the world.
So knowledge as a tool for action, not just for intellectual contemplation.
Right on. And Mozi, the founder of the school, even laid out 3 standards for evaluating the truth of any claim. First, you got to look at historical precedent. What did the wise rulers of the past do? Second, you got to pay attention to empirical observations. What are the people experiencing in their daily lives? And third, and this was the most important for them, you got to consider the practical benefits. Does this idea actually lead to a better world?
It sounds like they were putting a lot of emphasis on evidence and results, not just tradition or authority.
Exactly. This focus on utility was central to their whole philosophy, and it extended even to their beliefs about the supernatural.
Okay, now that's intriguing. Tell me more about that.
Well, a lot of people in ancient China believed in ghosts and spirits, but the Mohists had this interesting take on it. They said, hey, if believing in ghosts encourages people to behave morally, then it's beneficial to society, even if they don't actually exist.
Wow, so it's like they were saying the ends justify the means, even when it comes to religious beliefs. That's a pretty bold stance.
It is, and it shows how committed they were to this idea of promoting the greater good, even if it meant bending the rules a bit. And speaking of the greater good, their core ethical principle was Jian'ai, which means inclusive or impartial caring. It's this radical idea that we should extend our care and concern to everyone equally, not just our family and friends.
So no playing favorites, even with your loved ones. That's a tall order.
It is. And it was a direct challenge to the Confucian idea of filial piety, where you have special obligations to your family. The Mohists were like, no, no, no. Everyone deserves our compassion, regardless of who they are or where they come from.
It's like they were advocating for a universal love, a kind of proto-humanism. And I can only imagine how radical and controversial that must have been at the time.
Oh, absolutely. It went against a lot of deeply held cultural beliefs. But that's what I admire about the Mohists. They weren't afraid to challenge the status quo and push for a more just and equitable world. And I think their emphasis on impartial caring is a message that still resonates with us today.
For sure. It's a powerful reminder of the importance of broadening our circle of compassion and seeing the inherent worth in all human beings. Okay, so we've got Confucius emphasizing virtue and ritual, and the Mohists advocating for universal love and practical benefits. Now let's turn to the Tao Te Ching and Laozi. Their whole vibe seems so different, more about like going with the flow and finding harmony with nature.
You're picking up on something key there. I mean, the Tao Te Ching really stands out for its emphasis on aligning with the Tao, this natural and spontaneous unfolding of the universe. It's about letting go of control and embracing the inherent wisdom of the natural world.
Okay, so less about striving and more about surrendering. I think I can dig that.
Right. And they saw human interference, especially through things like language and the creation of artificial desires, as a major source of disharmony. Like all those shoulds and shouldn'ts we impose on ourselves and others, the Tao Te Ching is like, let that stuff go. It's just adding unnecessary stress and suffering.
So language, which is so important for the other schools in defining right and wrong, is almost seen as a problem in the Tao Te Ching.
Yeah, it's not that they were against language altogether. It's more that they recognized how easily it can be used to manipulate and control, to create these artificial desires that take us away from our natural state of contentment.
It's like they're saying, hey, we get so caught up in our heads and our thoughts and words that we lose touch with the simple wisdom of the present moment.
Exactly. And for them, acting as a philosopher wasn't about mastering a set of rules or striving for moral perfection. It was about cultivating inner stillness and emptiness, about becoming receptive to the Tao, allowing it to flow through you effortlessly.
I can see how that would be a radical shift in perspective for people living in a society that valued, like, social hierarchy and achievement.
Totally. And their key concept here is wu-wei, which is often translated as non-action or effortless action. But it's not about being passive or lazy. It's more about acting in accordance with nature, without forcing or striving.
So, like, not pushing the river, just letting it flow.
Precisely. Think of a plant growing. It doesn't strain or struggle. It just unfolds naturally, effortlessly. That's the kind of action the Tao Te Ching is promoting.
I love that analogy. It's so simple but so profound. And I'm guessing the ideal leader in this view wouldn't be some, like, authoritarian figure imposing their will on the people.
You're getting it. The sage ruler in the Tao Te Ching doesn't command and control. Instead, they create the conditions for people to flourish by simplifying their lives, removing unnecessary rules and regulations, allowing them to return to a more natural state of harmony.
It's like they're saying the best way to lead is to get out of the way, to trust in the natural order of things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And from this perspective, even virtues like Ren and Yi, which are so central to Confucianism, are seen as arising only when the Tao has been abandoned. It's like, okay, if you've got to have rules and morals, fine. But the ideal is to reach a state where those things are no longer necessary because you're so in tune with the natural flow of the universe that you just act in accordance with it spontaneously.
So acting as a philosopher in the Taoist tradition is less about following a prescribed path and more about cultivating this deep inner alignment with the Tao.
Right. It's about letting go of those rigid ideas of right and wrong and embracing a more fluid and responsive way of being in the world. It's a radical reevaluation of what it means to live a meaningful life.
Okay, so we've got this spectrum of approaches, from the Confucian emphasis on virtue and ritual to the Mohist focus on practical benefits and impartial caring to the Taoist idea of effortless action and aligning with the Tao. Where does Mencius fit into all of this?
Yeah, Mencius is super interesting because he was firmly rooted in the Confucian tradition, but he brought his own unique perspective to the table. He was a big believer in the power of the heart-mind, and he really emphasized the idea that humans are born with innate goodness, with these natural inclinations towards virtue.
Okay, so he was like the optimist of the bunch, saying we're basically good from the get-go.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
He believed that Tien, that cosmic force, had implanted these duan, or sprouts of goodness, within every human heart-mind. And for Mencius, acting as a philosopher was all about recognizing and nurturing these inherent moral tendencies.
So it's not about imposing morality from the outside, but about cultivating what's already within us.
Right, it's like tending a garden,
Yeah.
You're not creating something new, you're helping what's already there to grow and flourish. And he identified 4 specific duan that he saw as the seeds of the 4 cardinal virtues: compassion, shame, deference, and a sense of right and wrong.
So it's like we have this built-in moral compass that just needs a little guidance to point us in the right direction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Mencius believed that these Duran connect us directly to the goodness of Tian, to that higher source of morality. And he emphasized the importance of cultivating an unmoved heart-mind.
Unmoved. So like not getting swayed by our emotions or external circumstances.
Yeah, it's about developing this inner stability and resilience that allows you to stay true to your moral principles, even when things get tough. And this involves learning to rightly direct your Teida, to cultivate a sense of inner harmony that aligns you with the Tao.
I'm seeing how it all ties back to that interconnectedness we were talking about earlier. It's like our inner state is reflected in our outer actions and vice versa.
Absolutely. And Mencius had this great analogy to illustrate the power of compassion, which he saw as one of the most important Duan. He asks us to imagine seeing a child about to fall into a well.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one. It's pretty vivid.
It is. He says that in that moment, we would all feel this immediate surge of concern and a desire to help, regardless of whether we know the child or not. And for Mencius, that's proof that we have this innate capacity for compassion, this Science-Zixen.
So it's not something we have to learn. It's already there within us. It just needs to be cultivated.
Right. And that's where acting as a philosopher comes in. It's about paying attention to these natural moral impulses and allowing them to guide our actions. And it's not just about feelings either. Mencius also emphasized the importance of our sense of right and wrong, Shifei. He believed this was an inborn capacity to judge, to make distinctions, to see what's appropriate and what's not.
And that's crucial for guiding the development of all the other Duan, right? It's like the foundation of moral reasoning.
Exactly. And Mencius even used this sense of right and wrong in his political philosophy. He had these famous conversations with King Hui, using analogies and stories to appeal to the king's inherent sense of justice and persuade him to rule more compassionately.
So he was putting his philosophy into practice, trying to make a real difference in the world.
Absolutely. And he believed that these Duan naturally develop into virtues when nurtured by the heart-mind's cognitive moral intuition. He uses the example of learning to care for your parents and older siblings as a starting point for developing broader feelings of Ren and Yi.
It's like those early relationships lay the groundwork for a more expansive morality.
Right. And he acknowledged that ethical decisions aren't always easy, that sometimes we face conflicting values. That's where Quan comes in, the ability to weigh different considerations and make judgments based on the specific circumstances.
So it's not just about blindly following rules. It's about applying our moral intuition with wisdom and discernment.
Exactly. It's about cultivating a heart-mind that is both compassionate and discerning, capable of making nuanced ethical decisions in complex situations. And he has this great story about King Xuan and the ox that really highlights this interplay between emotion and reason.
Oh, tell me that one. I don't think I've heard it before.
So King Xuan sees an ox being led to sacrifice and feels the pang of pity. He orders that the ox be spared, but he's also unwilling to give up the sacrifice altogether. So he offers a sheep as a substitute. Mencius then questions him, asking if he truly values the life of the ox or if he's just afraid of appearing weak.
Ooh, that's calling him out.
It is, and it's a classic example of how Mencius used these kinds of thought experiments and emotional appeals to awaken people's innate goodness and encourage them to act in accordance with their conscience.
It's like he was trying to spark that compassion within them and then help them extend it outwards to encompass all beings.
Precisely. And for Mencius, this was the essence of acting as a philosopher. To cultivate a heart-mind that is both reflective and compassionate, capable of both deep understanding and right action.
I'm seeing how Mencius, while building on Confucius's ideas, really brought his own unique emphasis on this inherent human goodness and the power of moral intuition. It's a hopeful and inspiring message. Okay, and now we come back to the Zhuangzi. It feels like we're coming full circle, back to this idea of challenging those fixed categories and embracing a more fluid and interconnected way of seeing the world.
You're right. This Zhuangzi really throws a wrench in the works, questioning a lot of the assumptions we've been talking about, including the very idea of a fixed self and a hierarchical heart-mind that's in charge of everything.
Okay, I'm ready to get my mind blown again.
Well, hold on tight.
Yeah.
The Zhuangzi is all about questioning those boundaries, those rigid categories that we use to make sense of the world. It's advocating for a more holistic awareness that includes listening to all parts of our being, not just the rational mind.
So, like, embracing our intuition, our gut feelings, our bodily sensations.
Exactly. And there's this beautiful passage in the Zhuangzi where Ziki describes this experience of losing himself while listening to the sound of the wind. He's like, I was totally absorbed in the experience. I lost all sense of separation of me versus the world.
That's like the ultimate state of flow, right? When you're so immersed in something that you lose all sense of time and self.
Right, and the Zhuangzi uses this metaphor of the pipes of earth and Tian to describe how the heart-mind functions. Imagine those pipes, open at both ends, just allowing the wind to pass through freely. That's how they saw the heart-mind, not as this like central control center dictating everything, but as this more receptive and responsive organ that's constantly interacting with the world around it.
It's like the heart mind is a channel, a conduit for experience, not a dictator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the Zhuangzi is pretty critical of how our human moral arguments, all those debates about right and wrong, often arise from our very limited perspectives and our tendency to cling to language and make these rigid distinctions. They're like, hey, you're just choosing one way of slicing up the world, but there are infinite other ways to do it, and none of them are ultimately true.
So it's about recognizing the limitations of our own viewpoints and being open to other ways of seeing things.
Right. They even have this Hume-like reflection on the source of the I, suggesting that it's not solely located in the heart-mind, but arises from this complex interplay of our physical body, our senses, our experiences, and our interactions with the world.
So the self isn't a fixed entity. It's more like this emergent property, this dynamic process of becoming.
Right on. And the Zhuangzi suggests that the heart-mind acquires its structure by selectively focusing on certain experiences and labeling them as this or that, right or wrong. And once we've created these categories, they start to shape how we see the world. But we often forget that we were the ones who made those categories in the first place.
It's like we get trapped by our own mental constructs.
Precisely. And they have this famous line that really captures this. Courses are formed by walking them. Things are so by being called so. It's saying that our concepts of right and wrong, good and bad, are not inherent in the world itself. They're created through our interactions with it, through our choices and our interpretations.
So reality is like co-created by our minds. That's pretty trippy.
It is, and it's actually surprisingly aligned with some modern theories in neuroscience and cognitive psychology. There's this growing understanding of how our brains selectively attend to information and construct our reality based on our past experiences and expectations. It's like our minds are constantly filtering and interpreting the world, creating our own unique version of it.
And this onesie is basically saying, hey, be aware of that process. Don't get too attached to your own version of reality because it's just one of many possible perspectives.
Exactly. For them, knowledge wasn't about representing the world accurately. It was more like a navigation system, a set of tools for moving through the world effectively.
Yeah.
And they emphasize the importance of recognizing the limitations of any single perspective.
So instead of claiming to have the absolute truth, it's about being humble and acknowledging that we're always seeing things through a particular lens.
Right. And they use this beautiful image of the pangbird to illustrate this. The pangbird is this giant mythical creature that can soar to incredible heights, but to smaller creatures on the ground, it just looks like a shadow passing overhead.
So it's all about perspective. What's huge and awe-inspiring to one creature is just a fleeting shadow to another.
Precisely. And the Zhuangzi is saying that we're all like those different creatures, each with our own unique Umwelt, our own way of perceiving and interacting with the world.
And the goal isn't to try to find the one true Umwelt. It's to recognize the validity of all those different perspectives.
Right. They're not saying we should abandon our own conceptual frameworks. It's more about acknowledging their similarity to other frameworks, whether they belong to other creatures, other cultures, or even other individuals.
It's like they're encouraging us to cultivate this radical open-mindedness, this willingness to see the world through different eyes.
Exactly. And their approach to acting as the philosopher isn't about adhering to a set of rules or striving for some ultimate goal. It's about cultivating this open and receptive awareness, this ability to respond to the world with flexibility and spontaneity.
Okay, I'm getting a sense of how this might play out in practice, but what does that actually look like? How do you cultivate this kind of awareness?
Well, the Zhuangzi talks about this practice of fasting the heart-mind, which is about clearing away those preconceptions and judgments that cloud our perception.
So, like a mental detox.
Exactly. It's about creating space for new insights and perspectives to emerge. And one of the best examples of this is the story of Kukding carving the ox.
Oh, that's a classic. I always love that story.
It's such a great illustration of how skillful action can arise from this deep, embodied knowing, this intuitive understanding that goes beyond conscious thought. Kukding isn't thinking about every cut, he's just letting his body move in harmony with the natural structure of the ox, guided by years of practice and experience.
And he's so skilled that his knife never dulls. right?
Exactly. It's like his actions are so perfectly aligned with the Tao that there's no friction, no resistance. And the Zhuangzi is saying that we can cultivate this kind of effortless skill in any area of our lives, whether it's cooking, playing music, or even making ethical decisions.
It's about letting go of that overthinking, that constant need to control everything, and trusting in our own embodied wisdom.
Right. And this fasting the heart mind is an